This is Ben Doughty for the hardest game. Delighted to be joined this evening, at least it's evening where I am in London. Delighted to be joined by up and coming junior middleweight Victor Guerrero. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So, one thing I should say at the outset, Victor, you have a rather illustrious uncle, former world champion and contender Robert the Ghost Guerrero. You know what? There's a lot of pressure attached to being the son, an offspring of a famous fighter and a former world
Yeah.
champ. Is it a little different being the nephew? Do you get the nice bits without so much of the pressure?
I mean, it goes both ways. There's obviously pressure, and there's obviously comes with its perks, So, um, I've been the fighter for since I was a young kid. There's always been pressure. So, I just learned how to roll with it, and then just how to accept it. So, every fight that I go into, I'm well prepared, and when the lights come on, I'm ready to perform.
So you did have an extensive amateur career, yes?
I did. It wasn't too big. I had under 30 fights. It was actually tough getting fights in the amateurs. They seen a lot of opponents seen the names and they didn't show up to weigh-ins. They didn't even
Oh,
show up to the fights. So I had a bunch of fights that fell off. It was frustrating. It gets frustrating after a while. So ended up turning pro. My uncle's like, "Hey man, instead of just waiting around trying to find fights in the amateurs, let's get you experience in the pro game." So turned pro, and ever since then we've been on a great roll.
just for the benefit of the viewers, although I believe you're Las Vegas based, you come from out of Morgan Hill, California.
Yeah. I was born there, but I was raised in Guerrero, which is about 15 minutes south of Morgan Hill. But yeah, I moved here in Vegas in 2022 to pursue boxing. I had to get out of my comfort zone back at home and get away from, friends, distractions, and, people that were gonna, kind of push me to the side. But you know what? I came to Vegas and it's been great. The boxing capital of the world. I got a bunch of great gyms. There's a bunch of great gyms here, and I've been here ever since.
So who is your trainer?
Right now, his name's Sid El Harak. We've been together for about, I think, going on like 7 months now. 7 months, it's been going great. He's been showing me a lot of a lot of fundamentals that I really didn't have before. He's definitely popped my jab out a lot more, and really, upped my game, in terms of using my abilities. I'm 6'3", fighting at 154 pounds, coming from a background of being Mexican. We usually like to come straight forward and fight and brawl, So he kind of wanted me to use my abilities, my long reach, my 6'3" frame. So we've been working at that, and it's been going great.
I've got to say, I didn't realize you were 6'3". I did have a little look at some of the footage from your previous fights. You know what? I know Sid El Harek. I had him on Facebook for years. I
Yeah.
know he was a decent former pro fighter himself. He strikes me as a very uncompromising character, because when some fighters say something like Deontay Wilder when he said he wanted a body on his record, or I think somebody else. I'm trying to recall a fighter in the last several years who said, I think it was Teofimo Lopez. He said, "I don't
Uh,
care if I kill him," or something like that. And while most of the boxing community take a dim view of that and they say that's going too far, I remember Sid saying, "No, no, the hell with that." He says, "When you're a fighter and when you're training, you're giving it your all. That's the mentality you have. You do want to kill him." And I remember thinking it was very interesting. I don't happen to agree with him, but it just seemed like he was a very, very uncompromising character.
yeah. Of course. I mean, when you're going in there in the ring, that other person, they want to do the same thing. They want to take your head off. So you gotta instill that in your mind. That at the end of the day, it's a fight. We're both in there to win. So he has that killer mindset, and he's installing that to me too. I want to go in there and win every fight. There's no, we don't get paid to go overtime. In
Overtime.
this fight game. So the faster I get my opponent out, the faster I can go home with my family and enjoy that time with them.
And on that note, I noticed you have a pretty decent KO percentage. You've got 10 stoppages, KOs out of 12 wins at the minute. Obviously, somebody might glance at a record and say there's some fodder on that record, the way you're being brought up. I mean, certainly in the UK, when you get a prospect, their match with journeymen. We call them journeymen or way
Yeah.
fighters, what have you. And a lot of these guys are not coming with too much ambition. But to be fair, a lot of them will always go the distance. They're tough and they're slippery. Whereas sometimes in the States, particularly on the West Coast, we sometimes feel that there's these guys who are there to get knocked out. I mean, how do you feel about your level of opposition up to now? And has anybody stood out as the toughest opponent you faced so far?
Yeah, yeah, of course. My last opponent was he was he was a veteran, so he had 38 fights. You know, he was very tough, very crafty. So it took me some time to get him out of there, which was the fourth round. But no, like I said, me and Sid, we come with the game plan, and you know, we put in the work in the gym, and you know, we come out there and perform. So, but no, obviously the opposition is going to go up, and I got to just be well prepared for it, and that's what we're doing now. You know, this fight coming up August 29th. You know, we've been
Yeah.
preparing for it really good. Strength conditioning's been going good, boxing's been going good. I feel great, I feel healthy, and I'm excited to put a performance in California, where I'm from, my home state.
Yeah, I see that the opponent you've referred to in your last fight was Raheem Johnson. And, you know, a lot of these guys are better than their records, right? They're
Oh
better than
yeah,
the numbers say.
of course.
And I see that you're slated to box Scotty Stockman in Burbank, California on August the 29th.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And looking at Scotty, what do you know about the opponent? I mean, he's 4-3, so he has a kind of he has a winning record.
yeah, yeah.
Um, is he regarded as a step up, relative
I would
step up?
say, yeah, of course. I would say yes. Obviously, he doesn't have the, you know, the fights that my last opponent did, but you know, at the end of the day, you gotta go in there like this guy's like I'm fighting like a Fundora or I'm fighting like a Thurman, someone at the top level. Because as soon as you know you let your mind settle in and you get lazy in there, you know, it's boxing. You can get caught with anything. So. I go in there I go into every fight thinking that I'm fighting the best version of that person. So I do what I got to do in the gym and then sparring and then and you know in camp, so I can go in there, get them out early, and you know go home and then enjoy myself. So that's it.
Yeah, I noticed it's August the 29th, your next fight date, which happens to coincide with a big show over here in London. Moses Aitama fighting Filip Hrgovic.
Yeah,
Are you a boxing fan? Do you keep abreast of the world scene and
of
and a British boxing as well?
I do. Yeah, yeah, of course I do.
You say, of
We're
course, Victor, but you must have met some fighters that they couldn't tell you one thing about boxing except for their own
I
career.
know.
You
That's
know what
right.
I
Yeah,
mean?
I know. It's crazy. Yeah, yeah. I know. I'm keeping up on the World Cup right now, so that's a big thing on my side too.
Yeah, yeah.
My
I mean,
My team,
we've got.
my team's out the tournament. My team, Mexico, but you know they had a good run
Yeah, I believe they lost to us. And we got
to England. Yeah,
Argentina
yeah,
tonight. Are you
yeah,
are you
yeah.
watching that game today, Argentina versus England?
I am, I am. I'm actually going to be at the gym, but we got a TV. Hopefully, we can get it set up there. So that's gonna be a good game. I think that game's right now is like a 50-50 game. So it's you know, it's gonna be a great game.
Do you have an emotional allegiance? Who would you rather win the game tonight? You can tell the truth. I don't mind if you say
Yeah, yeah, no,
Argentina.
of course, of course. I mean, I don't really have a preference, you know, considering we lost to England, but Argentina, they beat us in 2022. So it's kind of I can't really say, man. It's you know, I was going for France. France is obviously out the picture
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
They got, you know,
Beat by Spain.
they got beat by Spain, so you know, we'll see what happens. We'll see. It'll be a good game though. I'm intrigued to watch it.
Is soccer on the rise in the USA now? With you hosting this World Cup again, would you say that it's at an all-time high, the levels of interest in soccer in the
Oh, of
United States?
course. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. You know, I think it brought a lot more attention to soccer, and it just shows you how big soccer is in the world. You know, a lot of Americans they don't really MLS is not really that at that level, or the Premier League and stuff, and you know all those other leagues in Europe. So I think it's going to be soccer is going to really, you know, step up its game in America. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
How do you feel about the boxing scene in America? Because when I was growing up, 1980s was my period growing up as a young amateur, and I would read the Ring magazine and KO magazine and Boxing Illustrated. And back in that era, the USA was the mecca of boxing. That was where you wanted to be. They were running the game. Lots of American black fighters dominating the game
Yeah.
back then. Larry Holmes, Marvin Hagler, Donald Curry, Aaron Pryor, all the rest of it. And in recent years, certainly probably the 2020s, we've seen a little bit of a drop off. You've still got plenty of good fighters in
Yeah, yeah,
America,
yeah.
and I think you always will have, but you haven't had the dominance that you had in the 80s and the 90s. Do you have any feelings about the American boxing scene and why that might be the case?
It's I can you can say how it's changing. You know, I know back then it was a lot of HBO boxing was around,
Yeah,
Showtime,
yeah,
you know, so that was a big attraction, pay-per-views, you know, everybody fought everybody, you know. Nowadays it's hard to a champion to fight another champion, which kind of, you know, it kind of derails, you know, the boxing aspect of it, like
yeah,
in terms of, you know, being interested, you know. So it's kind of moved away. I know over there in Europe and UK, those fans out there, they support no matter who's fighting. So yeah, I
yeah.
think it's kind of shifted a little bit, you know. So you know, it is what it
And you've
is,
got the
but
Saudi Arabia thing, right, Victor? You've got the big Saudi Arabian
that too, yeah.
stakeholding right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, that too. And then now also, you know, Zuffa boxing's kind of, you know, the new thing now. You know,
Yeah,
there's been a lot of 50-50 fights going on.
yeah,
They've been signing a lot of guys too. Just recently they just signed Shakur Stevenson, you know, that's
yeah.
a you know, we'll see who he fights next. So you know, a lot of
Well,
things to look forward to, you know. Hopefully the tide changes again and you know, America comes back to how it used to be, you know, when boxing was, you know, at its best. But you know, only time will tell.
how do you feel about Dana White specifically in boxing?
I think he's been, you know, he's been doing his thing. You know, of course you have to spend some money, you know, to make some money with these new guys, these new coming up guys, with the Zuffa boxing and you know, signing some big names. I was kind of shocked when he signed Conor Ben to
Yeah.
that one fight deal for 15 million. You know, that was a little shocker. That was, I think I pissed off a lot of people, you know, especially a lot of American fighters, you know. So but
Well, it's crazy, isn't it? Because I mean, you look at the performance that Conor gave. They gave him about the safest opponent they could, with no
yeah, yeah, yeah.
disrespect to Prograis.
No,
But the
yeah, no,
guy
this,
is
yeah,
he's a little guy. He's a small light welterweight,
yeah, yeah,
and he looked like he was on his last legs. But do you know what? He was tough enough and clever enough to go the distance.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's just not worth $15 million of anybody's money, is it?
That
It's
was
overpaying to prove a point.
oh 100%. You know, I think obviously that was their first big signing, so they had to spend the money to get him. You know, and I think what he did to Matchroom and just left him was kind of, you know, he did him kind of dirty too. You know, Eddie Hearn was by his side the whole time. You know, when he was
Yeah,
going through
the
his
drug
suspension and stuff.
scandal. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is what it is, you know. It's at the end of the day, it's boxing. It's very cutthroat, this business, you know, and you always got to be on your toes. So as long as you trust people in this sport and you know you got a good team around you, you know, things can, you know, go a long way for you.
So far, you've been brought up quite low key on the small shows in and around your own area and you know,
Yeah.
California. Who is your manager?
Lee, Samuel Lee management,
Yeah,
SLJ boxing management fighter. So he's been doing great. You know, me and Lee, we and him got a great relationship. You know, Sam, he's very cutthroat and very straightforward, which I love. And you know, he's been pushing me, you know, to get out there and to get recognized more, and you know, getting me fights as well. I know last year I didn't have two fights scheduled. They didn't come through, you know. They didn't fall off. So last year I had a, you know, I didn't fight at all last year. So this year I'm already on, this is going to be my fourth fight. And I got another fight after this December 10th. It's going to be in LA as well. So you know, shout out to Sam. You know, he's doing his thing and he's doing his job, which I appreciate.
so in Britain, if you're coming up as a professional boxer, you have to sell tickets. Otherwise, they're not going to move you forward. So you kind of have two choices when you turn professional. assuming you don't, have a big profile from the amateurs, like an Olympic medal or something like that.
Yeah,
So, assuming you're more a regular case of somebody turning pro, they'll want you to sell a decent amount of tickets because then you can pay obviously for your purse and your opponent's purse, and there's some left over for the house for the promoter.
yeah,
And if you can't sell tickets, they'll say, well, you can go on the road, which you just take whatever fights they offer you,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
have to be pretty, as you know, you have to be pretty good to be able to make a living like that because you've got to be able to prepare to fight anybody at any notice. So that's pretty much the way it works as people are building up towards
Oh,
championship level.
yeah, yeah.
How is it in the States? I mean, do you have to sell a ticket? I imagine you probably do sell a good ticket coming from a
Yeah, yeah,
boxing family.
of course. Yeah, yeah, of course. Especially being in, California. I fought a couple times in California already, and I bring a big crowd. So
Yeah.
um, this fight should be no different. I got a lot of people that been watching me. That been wanting me to fight. In California, especially. I know my last fight was in Virginia Beach. Wasn't really. I brought some people, but obviously, not the amount of people that I really wanted to bring. Obviously being in across the country. So I think this fight I'm gonna bring a big crowd. And I'm ready to go out there and perform for them and to show them that my skills has been risen up. Since the last time they see me fight in California, which was a couple years ago. So I'm super excited. Uh, like I said, camp's been going really good. My coach Sid's been preparing me really good, and we've been working on a lot of stuff that we need to work on. So I just hope August 29th, all my fans, all my people out there in California come out and support, and I'm gonna put on the show for them.
I guess obviously you'll be focused on the junior middleweight division in particular.
Yeah,
I mean, who do you feel is the main man in that division now? Would you say it is Sebastian Fundora, or do you think Jaron Boots Ennis is
I
the
think.
the
Yeah,
best
yeah,
fighter in that division?
I, I think it's right now. I think the tide has shifted to Boots. But even before Boots, the man was Fedora. He's been, I would say, the most toughest task for anybody. Coming at him being 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
There's not really too many big tall guys in that division. So
I mean, you're
I think.
reasonably tall yourself. Normally, you might be almost one of the taller super middleweights in the world yourself if it was not for the presence of Fundora.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's a fight that I definitely see myself, trying to fight in, somebody that kind of matches his his height, his reach and stuff. So, I'm just gonna keep knocking these fights out. Hopefully next year, end of next year we can, call out one of these big names. I know there's a lot of fighters in that division, Boots, Fundora, uh, Xander Zayas is another great fight that I love to have. Puerto Rico versus Mexico. It
Yeah.
makes sense. So I'm just gonna just keep winning these fights and keep growing and a lot of people are gonna recognize who Victor Guerrero is pretty soon. So it's just a matter of time.
It's interesting how obviously you consider yourself Mexican. The reason why I make a point of it is because you heard of the Ayala family, Tony Ayala Jr., who was kind of a notorious figure, but a great junior middleweight back in the day.
Uh,
And Mike, you heard of him?
I might have, yeah, yeah. If I put a face to the name, I think I could. I think I will. But yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, to be honest, I'll fill you in on it because those the Ayalas, the whole family of brothers, they were out of San Antonio, Texas. Tony was this guy that was knocking everybody out. I say everybody. He hadn't really fought anybody particularly special, but he was making short work of his opponents. He was very exciting, aggressive box fighter. And he signed to fight. He was supposed to fight Roberto Duran, but that didn't come together in 1982. Then
Mm,
he was the number one contender. He signed to fight Davy Moore for the start of the new year, 1983, and then he got arrested for rape and went away for a very long time. And there was a lot of kind of discussion around why a young man like that would throw it away and be so self-destructive and why he did it. And his brother Mike was a three-time world title challenger. He fought Danny Lopez for the featherweight title back in '79. He had a couple of challenges at super bantamweight, never quite won a world title.
mm.
But they're from San Antonio. And when I figured, I mean, I referred to him as Mexican because I figured that's where his ethnic pride would be. And he said, no, no, I'm an American. But so although you were born in California, you
Yeah,
very much consider yourself true
American.
Mexican, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. my grandma was born in Mexico, so I cherish that, very very heavily. Spanish was one of my first languages. That was actually my first language. So
That's what I heard. That's what I read.
yeah, so I definitely, give my credit to the Mexican fans. They come, like I said, they come heavy. Boxing's one of the biggest sports in Mexico. They really support their fighters. So yeah, no, I carry that Mexican flag with me. Every time I step in the ring.
Is boxing just one of those things that, like the done thing in the Guerrero family? Was it one of those things that was, because talk about the Ayalas again, and Mike told me they never really thought about being boxers. It was just what you did in that family, and they all became boxers. Is that, do you have that kind of tradition in your family?
Of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, my dad, I got my other uncles that fought, my grandpa fought, but the one that really took it to the top was my Uncle Robert. He kind of paved the way for us, for my cousin little Robert too, my cousin Jesse. So it's always been in our blood. We have that championship blood, that fighter mentality. So that was always the sport that whenever I'd go with my dad every Saturday night, we'd watch fights on HBO boxing, on
Yeah,
Showtime, and
yeah.
you know be at the fights, watching my uncle. So it's always been a staple in our family. It's just it's just you're born into it. So um but yeah, I've been at it since I was 14. I started taking it serious at 14. I've always been in the gym, 9, 10 years old, 11. I wasn't taking it serious. I was just running around,
Yeah.
messing around as a little kid. And then 14, I just started taking it serious, and ever since then we've been here.
Who is your all-time favorite fighter, boxing hero?
I would say right now, I'm a big fan. Obviously it's pretty obvious. Obviously my uncle Robert, but
Yeah,
besides him, I love Canelo. I love the way he fights. I
yeah,
love how he represents the Mexican people. Um, the way he at his venues, he it's like 90% Mexican fans. Whoever he fights. So Canelo's a big one that's on my list.
yeah. I mean, how much more do you think we'll see from Canelo? I mean, he obviously lost to Terence Crawford. There's no
Yeah.
shame in that. Came back against Mobili, but do you think that there are still some peaks for Canelo to scale in his illustrious career, or do you think that we've pretty much seen it by now, and he'll be retiring relatively soon?
Yeah, yeah, I think that he has about two more fights in him, maybe
Yeah,
three, just depending on how these two fights go. I know he has a tough challenge ahead of him with Christian and Billy. He's a very he puts a lot of pressure on you. So we'll see how, Canelo takes that pressure, So maybe he gets past, and Billy, and then he wins that title back, and then, maybe we see him with maybe like a Hamza Shariz or someone like that, a young buck
yeah,
coming up. So I'd say about two fights. If he wins these next two fights, I think we see a third one out of him, and I think he hangs it up. Because he has nothing to. I don't think he has anything to prove anymore. He's done it all in the sport,
absolutely.
undisputed, been a champion of multiple weight classes. So he's made a ton of money too. So he's pretty set up, pretty good. And now he's with the Saudis now. He's been with them for a minute. So we all know he's making tremendous money. So, but yeah, no, I think two fights and then maybe a third one after these two fights. So, yeah,
If I were to ask you who, in your opinion, is the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, who would you say? Would you say Canelo or?
Roberto Duran. I'm gonna say Roberto Duran.
Well, yeah, and I'm guessing you're going to claim that before anyone says he's Panamanian, you're going to say he's half Mexican, right? Because his father was
Yeah,
Mexican.
I would
Okay.
say so. Well, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because
Or Julio. I know. Honestly, I would say Julio Cesar Chavez. To be honest,
yeah,
he's an absolute. He was, man. He was something else. So I know his son didn't turn out how he wanted him to turn out. So it's but he had, talk about pressure. He had, pressure on him like you can't even imagine. Your
yeah.
dad being Julio Cesar Chavez, and then but No, Junior Chavez Junior did win a belt too, so you can't take that away from him.
I mean, I think those are impossible shoes to fill, to be quite honest with you,
Yeah,
because, like I say, he's not just an illustrious former world champion. He is one of the greatest, perhaps the greatest Mexican
yeah,
fighter who ever lived.
oh
And,
yeah,
and it's also, if you, to be honest with you, I've never known a world champion, the son of a world champion, to surpass his father. I mean, you get guys like Floyd Mayweather Jr. who surpassed their father, who wasn't his father, who wasn't a world champion,
yeah.
or James Buster Douglas, who his father was a good middleweight back in the day. But I've never. The only case I can think of where there was a world champion and then his son perhaps exceeded him, I would say maybe Corey Spinks was possibly a little better than Leon Spinks,
Mhm.
but
I
even
would
that's
say so.
debatable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that is debatable too.
but
So
it's the only one I can think of, Victor. Other than that, you think in any case. I remember doing a dinner with Nigel Benn 10 years ago, and his Connor
yeah,
was there at the table, and he said he will surpass me, my son will surpass me. But it's nice for a father to say that, but it ain't going to happen,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's a tough one too. That can definitely be a future fight for me as well. Conor Ben.
Yeah, yeah,
He's right there at 47. I know his last, not his last fight, but the fight before he fought at 60 with Eubank Jr.
yeah, twice,
So
yeah, yeah,
that was a good fight. Those are two good fights. But yeah, it's hard to say. I think I've been hearing a lot of speculation that he wants Ryan Garcia. He wants that green
yeah,
belt, the belt that his father had, So it's kind of hard because he signed with Zuffa, and then Garcia
exactly.
signed with Golden Boy. The Dana White and Oscar De La Hoya, they don't really mix good together. So we'll see what happens. I think that'd be a great fight, though.
Supposedly, we're told it's definitely happening. I mean, I was at a funeral a little while ago, and Tony Sims, who trains Conor Ben,
Yeah.
told somebody, not me directly, but someone else told me they'd spoke to Tony at the funeral, and he said he's definitely fighting Garcia. They
Okay.
seem to be taking their time with the announcement, and like you said, the interesting thing is Conor wants the WBC belt, which is understandable, but Zuffa, their whole mission statement is to ignore the sanctioning bodies and
Yeah.
to have their own belt, and maybe recognize the Ring Magazine belt as well. So it's an interesting situation, like you say. I mean, I don't know if you saw Garcia was on a talk show several weeks ago, and he said he announced a date in August, I think, when he was fighting with Conor Ben,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's still no official announcement. Who would you pick?
Considering how Connor looked his last fight versus how Ryan looked his last fight, I'm leaning towards more Ryan, to be honest. I think
Yeah,
he's definitely he has some pop to him. He's I wouldn't want to say more experience, but I think just right now he just won the belt, so his confidence is at an all-time high. He has tremendous speed. That left hook that comes with it, it's hard to stop, and I can't see Ben, stopping it. I just see him coming forward and getting caught with that left hook. Even that straight
yeah,
right that Ryan has, he was throwing that all day against Barrio. So
yeah.
I'm gonna lean towards more Ryan, but that's more of that's like a 60-40 fight for me. So but yeah, and nevertheless, it'll be a great fight, and it's gonna be it'll sell, it'll sell.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about Conor Ben, regardless of what anybody thinks of him as a fighter.
Yeah.
Commercially, he is a big commercial draw. Talk about Ryan's left hook. He seems to pull the trigger on it so quick. Like as a lead, the way a lot of people will say to you, if you're going to throw a left hook, you need to bring this shoulder back,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and then you turn into it. But Ryan doesn't seem to do that, right, Victor? He
No.
just seems to throw it from where he is, right, and
Just right. Yeah, he just there's no telling it
turns it.
when he's throwing it. Yeah, it's just he just snaps it really good, so it's just a gifted talent he has, that left hook, and he's been showing it for years, so but yeah, it's just man, it's just hard to see Connor trying to stop that, and just I think his mind's gonna be on that thinking about that left hook, all night. So
Yeah.
um we'll see if he can make the adjustment.
Do you have a favorite punch yourself? So in your favor?
It, I do, yeah. It's the left hook too.
Yeah.
We've been it's the left hook too. To be honest, um, we've been working on it. I dropped my last opponent with the left hook too, so um, I would say it's getting to where the Ryan Garcia is, that snappy, just, I'm not showing turning my shoulder back and projecting it. So that's what we've been working on in the gym, but we've also been working on other things. I don't want to say too much,
No.
but we've been preparing well for it for this next fight.
You talked to me about the left hook then. Okay, Victor, we don't have full length screens here, so we're not going to be able to demonstrate this, but let's just talk technique. I have these arguments or discussions with some people online, sometimes ex-fighters sometimes. The first thing I would say is you throw the left hook palm facing, right? You don't throw it palm down, right? Like right. You do it so you can see this inside of your hand when you finished it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. So we're on the same page on that. Okay, so there's a good friend of mine, a dear friend of mine called Michael Asilgalajade. He fought
Mm.
Tommy Hearns and he fought Aaron Barkley. You may have heard of him back in the day, but he says, "What is it when people? Why are fighters?" Or he says he sees it a lot on Instagram. You know when you throw the left hook and you turn your left foot up almost like you're stubbing a cigarette out with your lead foot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And he
yeah.
said, and he says, "What the hell is that? What is this pivot?" He says, "You should keep
Nah,
that foot flat." He said, "You keep it flat on the floor and throw your
turn
left
your
hook."
hips. It's all on the hips. It's on the
Yeah.
hips. That's where
So
you
you
get most
agree
of your
with you
power.
agree with the silk? Leave that foot where it is, yeah, and turn your hip, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would say just I wouldn't want to say turn it completely, but a slight bend into with while you're throwing the punch, while your hips are moving, so you get full rotation into it. You're not leaving any power, behind. So, yeah, yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. So I mean, I believe you're 27 years old, right?
Yeah, just turned 27. Yeah.
So you're in your physical prime. You're a grown man. Do you make that? Do you make 154 pounds without any struggle?
No, no, I make it easy.
Yeah.
Obviously it comes with, being disciplined and stuff. When it comes to, obviously 2 weeks before the fight, I really lock in and, really lock into the diet and start watching the weight. I usually after fights, I don't blow up too big how these other guys do, 20, 30
Yeah.
pounds. I usually try to stay within 10 to 15 pounds, 18 pounds. I don't like to kill myself during camp. I don't like to wear sweatsuits and, be in saunas for 20, 30 minutes. I like to, taper it all off, during camp and, shed it off easy when it comes to, coming to fight week. It's just water weight. And then, like how any fighter, that makes weight, is we just dry ourselves the night before and go and weigh in and, go perform.
Yeah. Because if you gain too much weight in between fights and you don't keep your weight within a certain range, then when you get to camp, I guess you're spending too much time trying to shed weight when you should be working
Yeah.
on skills. You know.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I know some fighters that gain a lot of weight and you go out and run and you're just running to lose weight. You're not running to get conditioning in, or you're not running to get endurance in. So I don't blow myself up too big. I try to stay balanced with everything I do after the fight, how I eat and stuff. So 154, I feel strong. We have talked about me and my team going down to 47, but
Oh,
it
really?
was just a question of, how long are we gonna be at 47? How long are we gonna, you're gonna be healthy at that weight, because I've never fought at 47 before, you know. I'm 27, so you know, are we gonna be there for only a couple fights? Are we gonna be there for a couple years? We just don't know. So we just decided to stay at 54, and obviously, being that I have the height advantage no matter what at 47 or 54. We just decided to stay at 54.
So certainly there is no plans whatsoever of going up to 160. There's no need for that, and no thoughts of
Not,
that.
I would say not anytime soon. I would say in the near future, once, I'd love to capture a belt at 54. And once that happens, I think we can move up to 60, which would be no problem. Still being one of the biggest guys at 60, at 6'3", I'd still have the height advantage, and the reach advantage as well. So I think I can see myself maxing out at 168, I would say.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, being only 27, who possibly in your physical prime right now, more or less, maybe you could see maybe boxing for another 8 or 10 years. In which
Oh,
case, you'd see
100%.
yourself climbing those divisions, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
Do you have, you're a full time pro boxer? You don't have another job, right?
I do have another job right now. It works with my schedule. I work early in the mornings. I'm out by 12:30, and I go straight to the gym after. And that considers my full day. I'm out of the gym by 4. I go running at night or strength conditioning. So hopefully within this year, I quit my job and it's 24/7 boxing.
Yeah. Fighters never used to have strength and conditioners way back in the day, right? They used to, the fighters
It's
in the
traditional
70s
push-ups,
and 80s. Yeah.
sit-ups,
Yeah. Groundwork,
go for
bag work, skipping, sparring. I
yeah,
mean, they didn't even do mitts a whole lot. If you look at, you'll never find a picture of Muhammad Ali on the mitts, for instance. I never
yeah.
see Sugar Ray Robinson on the mitts. Do you think, how important do you think the more enlightened approach nowadays is to strength and conditioning? What kind of stuff do you do outside of boxing on the conditioning front?
I do a bunch of stuff. Me and my coach, Quincy, very great coach, strength conditioning. He has me doing a bunch of variable things, working on things on muscles that I've never worked on in the boxing
Yeah,
gym. You know, we do a lot of conditioning work on the bike, on the treadmill, sprints and stuff.
yeah,
I know back in the days, the conditioning was, the main one was running, 5 miles, 6 miles almost every
yeah,
day, but back then they didn't have the technology and the science that they have nowadays. So that's a lot of wear and tear on your knees and on your
yeah,
body. So we focus on a lot of recovery work as well, sprints, on bike work, high speed work, and then take a 10-second break and then go at it again. So when you're in between rounds, you're throwing combinations. After you're done, you got to recover somehow. So that's what we've been working on. We've been obviously working on squats and my lower body, which I never worked on before. Getting me stronger on my lower body. So when I do snap those punches and those hips, it's full power.
yeah. So you don't do just simple long runs all the time. You mix it up and you do
No,
track work as well, right?
I do a little bit of track work. Yes, I probably run like twice a week now. It's not no 6 miles, 8 miles. I do incorporate a lot of swimming. That's one new thing that I've been doing is a lot
Because
of
they
swim
never
work.
used to, right? I remember they used to think that it was like poison swimming. They'd say it's the old school trainers that would really warn against the evils of swimming, saying that
Mm,
you were using the wrong muscles or whatever.
mm. No, 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 not anymore. That swim work is great. Great way to build conditioning. Let's just say I had a tough day at the gym sparring. I'm sore. Swimming's perfect for it. I'm not putting any strain on my body. And I'm working muscles that I don't work usually. So I think every boxer should do some swim workouts. So that's what I've been incorporating as well in my training.
What's your philosophy towards sparring? Are you mindful of the need not to have too many wars in the gym for longevity?
Yeah, that's what my coach believes in. He believes in that. You obviously, when you're sparring, there's some times where you need some good hard sparring, but not all the time. A lot of these I did work with a lot of Cubans and Dominicans, and
Yeah,
they do a lot of technical sparring, to keep the mind sharp, to keep the eye sharp, which is obviously great as well. um, Obviously you're still putting in some hard punches in, but you're not going to war every single time. So we do a lot of technical sparring as well. And it's been great. It's been keeping me sharp, from the beginning of camp, start of camp, to the end.
yeah. I don't know if you know, but the Brendan Ingle stable in Sheffield that produced Prince Nassim Hamed, Harold Graham, Johnny Nelson, Cal Brook, they had pretty much a body sparring only rule. I know it sounds
Mm.
crazy for a professional gym that had so much success, but they were pretty much body sparring only for the most part. I know certain people who ran that gym for years who said they never saw Prince Nassim sparring full head sparring just to the body. What do you think about that?
It's interesting. It's very interesting, but I mean, why change it when it's working? Why
Yeah,
fix it when it's working? So,
yeah.
like you said, they've had a lot of success doing that. So, I see nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there, insofar as you say,
Yeah,
regardless of what someone might think, it was obviously a winning formula for that particular, for that particular gym.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
which brings me, okay, that brings me to another point. I mean, are you a student of your own division in particular? Like when you think of great junior middleweights. I don't like super welterweight, by the way. It just sounds wrong to me. So I will
mm,
say, as far as I'm concerned, you're a light middleweight or a junior middleweight. But
yeah, yeah.
do you study boxing history, particularly in and around your own weight division?
I do. I do. Obviously, I do study a lot, on the fighters right now, considering that,
Yeah,
they can be future opponents.
yeah,
That's where my main focus is at, is with these new guys now, Um, I do watch a lot of film. Obviously, I watch the fights every fights that comes on Saturdays and stuff. So, I'm always a student to the game. There's no perfect fighter unless you're one of these greats or like a Mayweather. So, I'm still learning. I'm still learning new things. My coach teaches me and trying to break old habits and stuff. So, whatever I can soak in, I'm gonna soak in, and I'm gonna use it to my and put it to my arsenal.
do you have an opinion as to the greatest junior middleweight of all time, the greatest guy who ever boxed at 154?
uh there's been a lot of great 54
Yeah,
pounders. I've The most recent one that surprised me is when Manny Pacquiao fought at 54 once, and
yeah.
he said one and done. Considering how small he is. So there's been a lot of great fighters. The ones that I used to follow the most was the Charlo brothers. I used to,
Yeah,
when I was coming up too. Those were they were really exciting fighters. Especially Jamel. Jamel still, he was I would say the last undisputed
junior middleweight
super
champion.
yeah, junior middleweight champion. So I know he hasn't fought in a while since his Canelo fight. So that was one of the last, that was when the division was pretty hot too. And but now we got a lot of great fighters now: the Fondoras, the Ortiz, the Boots, the Xander Zayas and stuff. So the Josh Kellys. So
Yeah, he's there. He's in the mix.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And he's a champion, so you can never, count him out. So yeah, the division's hot right now. So it's gonna be a hot division for a while, and pretty soon I'm gonna be in that mix as well.
I mean, obviously, a lot of people, if you ask them about all times at 154, they might come down to a choice between Thomas Hearns or Mike McCallum, for instance.
Mm. Oh, for
Is
sure.
that
Yeah, yeah. Tom Hearns was a bad man. He was a bad man. So I think he kind of set the tone for that division. So it's just there's just so many names. Like I said, especially now too. It kind of died out, in the past couple years, the 54 division. But
yeah,
we got the Fondoras, which he's just a freak of nature in his height. I don't think we've seen anybody that tall, coming out
no.
that division. So it's definitely exciting to be a part of it, and to hopefully one of these days, one of these couple coming up years, I'm gonna catch one of these fights pretty soon.
Well, it's good to make your acquaintance relatively early. Hopefully, we'll get to talk in future as you become more successful and increasingly well known and relevant. So, in the meantime, I wish you all the luck in the world, including on August the 29th. Here's hoping that England get through tonight. In any
Yeah,
case, and but thanks you for taking the time out to speak to me today, Victor. And I
appreciate
will
it.
be looking out with your progress with a keen eye from here on in. And I wish you all the luck.
Thank you, I appreciate it, Ben. You guys have a good
Good
one.
man.
Thank you.